Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program Capital Beat. With expectations mounting for a retaliatory strike after the Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 people, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reportedly given the armed forces full operational freedom to decide the timing, the targets, and the method of response against Pakistan. But many developments have happened. In the meanwhile, there are reports that residents near the line of control begin readying the bunkers as Pakistan violates ceasefire for the eighth consecutive night. And also, US Vice President JD Vance has said that he hopes India will respond to Pakistan in a way that avoids a broader regional conflict, while also asking Pakistan to cooperate with India to find those responsible for the attack. Now, what are the options with India as far as the military strike is concerned? So we'll try and discuss this, that what are the options and where does India really stand? What are the challenges as far as the security matters are concerned? Joining me now is a renowned counter-terrorism expert, security expert, Mr. Ajay Sahni. So thank you so much for joining. And my first question to you, Mr. Sahni, is that it's 10 days now, 22nd April, Pahalgam terror incident happened. And 10 days have gone by, and still we are struggling to catch hold of the actual perpetrators. Now, why do you think so much of time is taken? And is the terrain so difficult that the security forces are not able to reach?
The terrain is not so difficult that the security forces can't reach. The point is, by the time they reach, the adversary has relocated. It's a very, very difficult, it is among the most difficult terrains in the world. Very high mountain passes, very high mountains, heavily forested areas. And you must understand that a pursuing force is always at a tremendous disadvantage in such, particularly, always, in fact, is at a disadvantage. But in such terrain is always at a much greater disadvantage. You may recall many instances where pursuing forces have been ambushed, many soldiers have been killed. So it's not just something that you can rush in. The other thing is this idea that you can somehow or the other saturate areas where every inch of the ground is covered. It doesn't happen that way. These are very, very wide areas with multiple routes of exit. So it's not just a question of throwing a cordon around a small area and then closing in and knocking these chaps off or arresting them. It's perhaps the most challenging terrain in the world. My understanding is that they've had a couple of sightings already, which means that these people have not left that general area where the searches are ongoing, which makes it, I would suggest, quite high likelihood that they will eventually be engaged and either caught or neutralized.
But what are the options now before India? Now, China has also issued a very threat that they have made no bones about the fact that they will support Pakistan. Then America also, now JD Vance saying that the military strike should be to the extent that it doesn't impact the regional stability. So are the security forces really in a position to go in for a full throttle as far as the military strike is concerned? What are the options available with India at the moment?
You started by saying it is 10 days since the Pahalgam attack. I would like to sort of say it is 35 years since terrorism started in Jammu and Kashmir. We must not forget this. It is a terrible incident, but it is just one more incident in a very long sequence of incidents. Terrorism has enormously weakened in Jammu and Kashmir, and simply having a psychologically satisfying strike across the border is not going to resolve any issue. First of all, war, I think, is something we can rule out. It is far too expensive. Its costs can never be calculated. The escalatory ladder can never be anticipated in advance. We have seen what has happened, for instance, in the Russian conflict in Ukraine, going on for 3 years. It was supposed to be a short little thing. A tiny area like Gaza, and Israel is bogged down there. So we must understand that war as a open declaration should be written off. Apart from the fact that China has very clearly stated that they will consider uh, the sovereignty and security of Pakistan as a critical objective for their own policy. So the regional environment is not something that permits the possibility of open warfare. Any lesser strike is only going to be theater in terms of satisfying a whipped up uh, uh, desire for vengeance. And I repeat that it's a whipped up desire for vengeance. There is this constant refrain ongoing on many television channels, in the social media, that we must, and it is added to by political rhetoric where you say chun chun ke marenge and muh tod jawab, that sort of thing. If you carry on with that, the everybody thinks it's just about going back and slapping these guys. It's not about going back and slapping these guys. It is about what difference will it make if our people go across, hit a terrorist camp or a military establishment and kill 10, 20, 40, 70, 100 Pakistanis. They will retaliate, number one. Even if their retaliation doesn't matter. Will that change Pakistan's course as far as terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir is concerned? No. What will change their course is the inflicting of enormous, unbearable costs. And that cannot be done in 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, or with a surgical strike, or with a airstrike, or with a missile strike, or a naval operation in Karachi. It cannot be done by a one-off incident, please.
Right. No, so Mr. Sahni, that all this talk about like yesterday, Home Minister Amit Shah said, "Chun chun ke hum marenge." Then the other day, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Bihar at an election rally, there also he said, "Hum patal mein ghuskar logon ko dhoond nikalenge." Those kind of statements. Should the political fraternity refrain from comments like these? And if you're saying that this kind of a military strike is also not a solution, so how should the government of India be approaching this entire policy towards Pakistan? How to control terrorism in Jammu Kashmir? What is the option then? What can the government do? Because it's a national sentiment right now, and can we really blame Modi government if they are talking about taking the revenge for 26 people if they have been killed? So what is the kind of approach which the government should be taking at this point of time?
First of all, the language. I do not think the language of a prime minister or a home minister should be the language of a street thug. This is gundagardi. Chun ke marenge, girban se ghar mein ghus ke marenge. This is not the language of statesmen. This is not the language of national leaders of that stature. So very definitely, this is not the language they should be using. Number two, there is a popular sentiment for a retaliatory action or revenge. Yes, but as I said earlier, this popular sentiment has been fanned. It has been provoked. It has been orchestrated. If the Prime Minister would stand up and say, yes, we will respond to this, but we will respond in our own manner, the people will accept that. The people will. But if you tell them, I'm going to do something, I'm going to bomb them, I'm going to blow things up, I'm going to kill them, if you say that, then there is a bloodthirst. Immediately, the people say, oh, yes, the Prime Minister said this, now he must do this. And if he doesn't do this, yes, the party and the image of the Prime Minister will, in some sense, suffer a loss of credibility, a temporary loss of credibility. None of these things last. As I said, this is a 35-year-old conflict. In fact, you could say this is a 78-year-old conflict. It started from the birth of Pakistan. In fact, it started before the birth of Pakistan, with the movement for an independent Pakistan. So you must place this within this larger context. Now, there are two things that I would say over here. Within this larger context, you have to have an approach that is sort of based in, entrenched in the strategy of protracted conflict. This is very well documented among people who study these things. Now, protracted conflict requires you to study the strengths and weaknesses of the adversary, to systematically, institutionally undermine these strengths, and systematically exploit the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of the adversary system. which means with all instrumentalities, not just military. Now, for instance, one element that has been introduced by the Prime Minister in the first response is the Indus Valley Treaty, the Indus Waters Treaty. And he has said we suspend it. Now, if you act on this, and this action is not going to happen in weeks and 10 days and 20 days and 30 days. But the question is, will we stay with this? Not just with the suspension of the treaty. I'm not saying we dam up the Indus and don't let a drop of water flow across. But even if we begin to utilize our share of the water more fully and marginally diminish the flows of waters into Pakistan, the impact on the Pakistani economy, on the on food production, on politics will be comprehensive. Now the question is, 6 months down the line, are we just going to go back and say, all right, we will talk about the Indus Water Treaty again, or let it be, we withdraw the suspension, or are we going to stay with it? And that is the problem with us. That historically we have always sought these short-term retaliatory actions, if at all we have sought anything. Mostly it was, all previous governments said, we will not talk to Pakistan, we will talk to Pakistan, then we will not talk. That was it. It was a pendulum from talks, no talks, talks, no talks. And if you ask them, what are the actual penalties we have inflicted? The answer is zero. Pakistan has not been made to pay. Now, how are they to be made to pay? This is a country that is in terminal decline. Now, terminal decline can last for another century, all right? Countries don't die overnight. You look around yourself, there are countries that have been completely collapsed. And yet, as political entities, as countries, as states, they continue to exist. Nothing, the government has no role other than going out and killing people. And people have no role other than being killed or killing other people. And yet those countries survive. So I'm not saying Pakistan is going to disintegrate tomorrow, but it is on the edge of multiple crises. It is not on the edge, it is embroiled in multiple crises. So a strategy of protracted conflict would mean that we study these multiple crises, we erode the strengths Pakistan has to fight these, and we widen the vulnerabilities. We exploit the vulnerabilities. We help accelerate a process that they have inflicted on themselves. And that is a realistic, long-term response, not to Pahalgam alone,
No,
but to
but then
30.
what are the challenges when you are saying that this is the manner in which we could proceed? So why is it so difficult for the ruling dispensation or for the government not to understand this, or are there any challenges why the
The,
government is
cha-
not thinking about all
I think the challenge is very simple. It is the absence of an attention span among those who lead the country. It is short-term calculus of elections. Every 3 to 4 months, we have an election somewhere. And that is all they are concerned about. And whatever other daily things are put up on files in front of them. You see, that's the problem. There is no strategic response in terms of a sustained, considered response. Now we have decided we will do these 10 things. And we do those 10 things for the next 20 years. If you plan for 20 years, you will resolve the problem in 2 to 3. If you plan for 6 months, you will not resolve the problem in the next century. That's what's been happening with us. Because we have not planned a long-term strategy on Pakistan, this terrorism has carried on for 35 years. Pakistan's hostility to us has carried on for 78 years. So if you have, there's this very nice line which says that if you don't have a strategy, you will be part of somebody else's strategy.
That's true.
That's what is happening to us. We don't have a strategy, so we are always part of Pakistan's strategy, China's strategy. More and more, we now think of ourselves as part of America's strategy against China. What is our strategy? I want to know that. Do we have a strategy for India? Do we have a vision for India other than these worthless generalizations? We will be a great country. We will be a world power. I mean, General Asim Munir of Pakistan says we are the greatest culture in the world. We are a superior ideology. I mean, anyone can say these things. How do you realize these? in fact, in reality, on the ground. And if you don't have that strategy, you will carry on doing precisely what you have done in the past: scream, shout, do a few theatrical events. Whether or not they succeed, you can always package them as a success because you have a certain subservient media environment in this country today. And then you will carry on for the next 5 years saying, look, we did this wonderful thing and Pakistan has been deterred. Whether or not the numbers tell you that Pakistan has been deterred, whether or not Pakistan's conduct actually changes on the ground. That was one. The second thing you must understand is that we must not forget, and I've said this again and again over the past few days, we are winning this. We have come from a situation where thousands of people were being killed every year. In 1 year, 2001, the worst year, 4,011 people were killed according to South Asia Terrorism Portal data. Last year, 127 people were being killed. Why are we constantly going around the place saying, oh, we are victims, we have been destroyed? Please understand, we are a nation of 148 crore people. You cannot allow 4 terrorists and 1 incident in which 26 people have been killed to define the entire national policy and the national response. You cannot, you are too big.
No, but Mr. Sahni, the constant refrain of the government has been that the terror and talks cannot go together as far as Pakistan is concerned. And I'm sure, I mean, the earlier governments also almost held the same thing. At that time, when Sushma Swaraj was the opposition leader, she also used to say the same thing. So, is a dialogue not possible at all on any front with Pakistan? And should that be the approach? Or we should change the line?
No, I don't think you should change the line at all. This should have been our line, and it should actually have been a line we adhered to instead of jumping in and out of it. As I said, we had this pendulum from talks, no talks, talks, no town, talks. We shouldn't be talking to them. But let me tell you one thing. We are still talking to them, and we should be talking to them. When you are talking about talks, you are talking about engagement at the top political level. That has too much symbolic significance. It endorses Pakistan. It reinforces the legitimacy of the Pakistani leadership. That should never be done. But as far as talks are concerned, NSA level talks have been going on periodically. We have continuous talks between theater commanders of the army on both sides. No problems. Those talks are going on, must go on. But at the level of political talks, where we are in fact legitimizing the Pakistani political leadership by engaging with them, giving them a cover to carry on with terrorism, even while they tell the world that, look, we are great peacemakers, we are very rational people, we are talking to the Indian side, we don't have any great animus against the... We must not give them that cover. So there must not be any talks at the political level until we see firm evidence that these people have changed their conduct, they have dismantled the terrorist camps, they have taken action against the most prominent terrorists, and they have actually done enough for us to believe, not the world. I am not interested in the assessment of America and the United Nations, and we must be convinced, truly, in ourselves, not with any demonstrable evidence. But now we know Pakistan is not going to try to harm us.
No,
At
but
that
if
juncture, please, yeah.
Right. No, but if Pakistan has perpetrated the incident, they are also asking for a neutral investigation. They are saying that India doesn't have any evidence and they are pointing fingers at Pakistan. So, what should be the priority of the government? To show them the evidence 10 days into the incident, the Pahalgam incident, we still have no evidence. And that is what Pakistan is saying, that where is the evidence? You show us the evidence and we call for a neutral investigation.
Define evidence. Define neutral investigation. There have been multiple incidents in the past. The 26/11 incident in Mumbai, one person has been convicted in America, David Headley, for involvement in that attack. His testimony and the testimony of others who were brought forward in that case as witnesses gives full evidence of Pakistani involvement at the state level, at the level of the Lashkar-e-Taiba and its leadership, at the level of the entire infrastructure of terrorism in Pakistan. Pakistan still does nothing against those people. You just will have heard that Hafiz Saeed has been relocated into in a very secure civilian neighborhood, so that if some kind of a covert operation is launched against Hafiz Saeed, most likely a lot of civilians would be killed. So they protect. So you see, you must understand, when you talk about evidence, you are implicitly saying that there is a neutral, unbiased adjudicatory authority. Who is going to adjudicate? The United Nations. The United Nations is not an adjudicatory entity. It is a political entity. People vote. China has a veto. Time and again, when the Azhar Masood of the Jaish-e-Mohammed was to be brought onto the United Nations list of banned individuals, China simply vetoed that move because there was no evidence. No, no. The whole world agreed that no, this man is a terrorist, he should be declared a terrorist. China said we won't allow it. So we must understand there is no third party that we have to appeal to here. This is between us and them. And evidence is irrelevant. You can provide as much evidence as you like. They will still say, no, but this doesn't convince us. There was, by the way, there was a joint investigation into 9/11. There was a joint investigation into the Pathankot terrorist incident at the Air Force Station. What did that produce? They simply...
What I want to understand also from you, Mr. Sahni, is that what is the ground situation actually in Kashmir? Because government has been claiming normalcy in Kashmir since the abrogation of Article 370, but even then we saw a number of targeted killings, and this time now Pahalgam has taken place. What is the sense you get from the ground? What is the real Kashmir all about? Is it calm? Is it quiet? Is it peaceful? All the claims made by the government?
All the claims made by the government are political claims. They are not in any way what you would describe as security assessments. These are political postures. Now, when you opened out tourism, Kashmir to tourism at this scale, were the security forces consulted? Did they say, yes, we are in a position to provide comprehensive security to that many? I mean, you're talking about 2.3 crore tourists last year. And more perhaps were expected this year. Did the security forces say, yes, all this can be covered? I would like to suggest they were not in agreement with the proposal. Number two, what do you mean by normalcy? Zero terrorism, which is what this government keeps saying, that is a foolish idea. You cannot have zero terrorism anywhere, even in theaters of peace. One man coming along with a bag can leave it somewhere and blow up 2, 5, 20, 200 people, depending on luck. Okay, so zero terrorism is an utterly and completely incoherent security objective. Now, what is normalcy? Normalcy in Delhi is not the same as normalcy in Bihar, is not the same as normalcy in Chhattisgarh, is not the same as normalcy in Kashmir. You have to look at the background and the environment of these places. As I said before, here is a state that has come from 4,000 fatalities in 1 year, has come from 16 years of what's called high-intensity conflict. That means more than 1,000 fatalities every year. 4 years with more than 3,000 fatalities. It is today recorded 127 fatalities last year. As far as I am concerned, this is the Kashmiri normal. This level of violence can be sustained as long as Pakistan continues to support terrorism there. It can be sustained either through some local support or through mercenary inducements. You can always have 15, 20 incidents through the year. And that is the realistic security assessment. That yes, this will continue. It is nowhere near the old levels cannot be restored unless India commits, conscious suicide politically.
But Mr. Sahni, when you talk about the approach towards terror, when UPA was in power, it was accused of being soft on terror. And now, when you see the current regime, do you feel that there is any difference in the way they approach the terror attacks? What is the difference you find between UPA and now the current regime?
At the policy level, I think the current regime is much worse off.
Okay.
Please understand, Manmohan Singh was supposed to be this very weak prime minister. He inherited a situation where there were almost 2,900, 3,000 fatalities in the year when he came into power. By 2012, fatalities in Jammu and Kashmir had gone down to 121, a level that we have still not secured under this government, despite Article 370 and all the other nonsense they keep talking. This government has done nothing constructive in Jammu and Kashmir as far as counter-terrorism is concerned, beyond a continuation of exactly the same strategies and tactics that the previous government had adopted, which means security force dominance, hardening of the grid, improvement of responses. If anything, they have from time to time weakened the grid, and that is why you had those cluster of incidents in June, July last year in Jammu. And then, of course, what did they do? They brought in force again, they hardened the grid. Now you don't have incidents in Jammu again. Tomorrow again, you may find a vulnerability. The adversary is constantly reinventing himself. So he will constantly be able to find some vulnerabilities and exploit them. But the point is, the most effective elements of strategy are precisely those that were adopted by the last government and continue into this government. The policies of aggressive communalism, on 370, of the polarizing politics they have introduced, actually took fatalities up after this regime came to power to a peak of 418 in this I think 2018. After which we have again seen a decline, none of which has anything to do with 370. Because whatever was left of 370 was still there under Manmohan Singh, and he brought, and under him, fatalities came down to 121. So don't tell me, oh, a miracle has occurred after 370. I mean, look at the numbers and look at the fact that this government inherited a situation where after 2012, in 2013, fatalities increased to about 195. So they inherited a situation where they had about 195 fatalities. And they took it to a situation where there were 418 fatalities. And then they have now managed barely to bring it down to 127 fatalities last year. So you can make your own assessments of the grand strategy that they have implemented.
My last question to you, Mr. Sahni, is that now that like 10 days have passed, the terror incident, all kinds of big talk is happening all around. Hum chun chun ke marenge, hum patal lok mein pahunch jayenge, whatever mainstream media is showing. But what would be that one piece of advice you would give to the government and to the media at this point of time?
Well, as they say, revenge is best served cold. Calm yourselves. Decide on a strategy which will truly hurt Pakistan at structural levels, which will make Pakistan pay at structural levels, not this flash in the pan. Look, I'm telling you, if you kill 20 people tomorrow in Pakistan, terrorists, soldiers, 20, no, 30, 200. I think 150, nearly 150 people in a school were killed by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, in a military school, out of which I think 129 were just children. Did that change Pakistan? No. They still carry on with their communalism. They still carry on with their support to terrorist groups. And some of those terrorists go across onto the other side and say, oh, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan now rejects Pakistan. We want an Islam. Whatever. But please understand, you kill 130 people across the border. You kill 130 soldiers across the border. You kill 130 members of families of soldiers across the border. It's not going to change anything. Because the value of the lives of these people is very low. Close to 2,000 people are being killed in Pakistan due to terrorism. Right now, last year. Do you see Pakistan at a fundamental level of consciousness, of ideology, of policy, taking cognizance of this and saying, no, we've done something wrong. Why are the people of Balochistan rising against us? Why is the Taliban against us? We supported the Taliban. And the Taliban is now cooperating with Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan to wage a terrorist war against us. Does that wake them up? No, it says we will do more of the same.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and watch how India responds in the coming days. But it was amazing to talk to you, Mr. Sahni. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you.